Regulation should be a good issue for Democrats. It's certainly one they're associated with. And I think the average voter would agree that banks and chemical plants and drug companies need watching. Telling a company, you can't dump the waste from your hog farm straight into the water supply. We're mostly all for that.
Bill Maher recently delivered a commentary on the media frenzy that was truly remarkable. Even after the event ended, his incisive insights continued to dominate conversations, cutting through all the noise. He pointed out that in an effort to feel righteous, Democrats have often turned into exaggerated versions of themselves, crafting rules and regulations simply for appearances. Their attempts to prevent every possible mistake are ultimately unattainable, and in the process, they end up harming ordinary people. Maher, a committed socialist, didn't hold back in criticizing the woke for their reluctance to confront conservatives and centrists. He framed their avoidance not as prudence, but as a clear sign of weakness, delivering his critique with unapologetic clarity.
Democrats have become a parody of themselves, just making rules to make rules because it makes you feel like you're a better person. Making sure that everything bad never happens again, which you can never fully do. It just makes everyone else's life a drag.
His blunt commentary sparked a heated discussion online, drawing strong reactions from both supporters and critics alike. So let's jump right into it.
The Biden infrastructure bill has a provision that requires all new cars to install an alert system that goes off when you leave a baby in the back seat, which is something done only by crackheads and people who sadly, yes, do it on purpose. And after every one of us winds up bearing the cost for cars to install this alarm, you know who's going to ignore it? Crackheads and people who do it on purpose.
And that's exactly what Maher highlighted about the left, the rapid demonization of anyone who disagrees. Question their policies, and suddenly you're painted as a villain. Challenge their narrative, and you're labeled a tyrant. Remarkably, you could be branded a fascist just for standing your ground. This reflexive labeling doesn't just halt conversation, it poisons it. To make it easier to attack opponents, the left often distorts their positions instead of fostering open, thoughtful discussion. Consequently, those who struggle with meaningful debate resort to lobbing shallow insults at the right, relying on empty rhetoric rather than reasoned arguments.
The right-wingers say what you want about them, but they talk to you. They're not into this leftist think that the left really has much more of a, I don't talk to you, I don't want to deal with you, you're deplorable, I can't break bread with you. Yeah. That attitude, and like all the right-wingers, they don't have that attitude. No, again, I didn't vote for them.
Though he may never openly admit it, Bill Maher already leans toward many conservative positions. His takes on cancel culture, woke extremism, and the left's relentless intolerance often read more conservative than liberal, even as he continues to identify as a liberal. This has sparked widespread speculation among journalists and commentators about what a Maher political campaign might look like, particularly in relation to the Republican Party. Imagine a lifelong liberal suddenly being viewed as a valuable ally by the very group he once opposed. What would that even look like?
Not here. He's a human being. He's not a monster.
And a husband and a father.
Yes, and I liked him. I liked them all. They're all nice people when you meet them in person, and they're not as crazy as they would. Nobody's as crazy as they make them out to be.
The purpose of life is to grow, evolve, and gain wisdom over time. Everyone holds beliefs that, with hindsight, may clash with reality, and that's completely natural. Growth comes from reassessing ourselves, learning, and embracing a practical perspective. But here's the issue. The left now appears stagnant. Instead of moving forward, they cling to rigid, outdated, and often illogical ideas. Even more concerning, while the rest of us continue to adapt and learn, they resist compromise and avoid engaging with those outside their bubble. They remain trapped in a mindset built on denial.
Pressing enough, having just had a birthday and being 66, please don't ask me to start doing grown-up things like run for president. A few weeks ago, Fox News' Dana Perino, a former Bush press secretary, suggested that the Democrats should recruit me to run for president, which is kind of special because it means that in the space of 20 years, Bush press secretaries have gone from telling me I need to watch what I say.
They need to watch what they say, watch what they do, and this is not a time for remarks like that. There never is.
They've gone from that to wondering if I should run for president.
It'll be interesting to see if Bill Maher is recruited to run for the presidency.
The left's sensitivity to criticism can be almost absurd. When their flaws are pointed out, they rarely pause to reflect. Instead, they lash out and ostracize you as if you've committed a serious offense. Maher, who had long championed progressive causes and stood as one of their most vocal supporters, was suddenly no longer celebrated. The moment he began questioning their cherished woke ideals, he shot to the top of the public's disapproval list. This is the familiar pattern on the left.
Any flaws, but you can't accuse me of maturing. Let's get this straight. It's not me who's changed. It's the left, who is now made up of a small contingent who've gone mental and a large contingent who refuse to call them out for it. But I will. That's why I'm a hero at Fox these days.
If you agree, they shower you with praise. If you disagree, they turn on you without mercy. What a tragic squandering of true open-mindedness and tolerance.
Shows just how much liberals have their head up their ass, because if they really thought about it, they would have made me a hero on their media. But that can't happen in this ridiculous new era of mind-numbing partisanship, where if I keep it real about the nonsense in the Democratic Party, it makes me an instant hero to Republicans. The same thing happened in reverse to Darth Vader's daughter, Liz Cheney, who is now a hero to liberals simply because she recognizes Biden did not steal the last election. What a sad comment.
Let's be honest, the left no longer claims to be the voice of reason. What they now operate feels less like politics and more like sheer chaos. Consider the shouting matches masquerading as debates, a cancel culture so voracious it devours its own faster than piranhas, and the endless purity test, the silver lining. What many of us have long suspected is finally being acknowledged by a few courageous leftists. The movement has become harmful. Even Gavin Newsom, California's progressive poster child, has recognized this reality. While some supporters are calling for a reset, the left desperately needs a complete overhaul, a thorough cleansing, and perhaps even a radical reckoning. They continue to preach principles to others, even as their own internal chaos worsens beyond repair.
Sometimes say to me, you didn't used to make fun of the left as much. Yeah, because they didn't give me so much to work with. The oath of office I took was to comedy. And if you do goofy, wherever you are on the spectrum, I'm going to make fun of you because that's where the gold is. And the fact that they are laughing at it should tell you something. It rings true.
Democrats have a peculiar talent. They somehow normalize and even celebrate ideas or behaviors that are unusual, dangerous, or plainly problematic. Take shoplifting, for instance. In city after city, penalties for theft have been reduced, effectively turning it into a casual activity. This allows criminals to walk away with armfuls of goods, leaving hard-working store owners powerless. Then there's homelessness. Rather than tackling the root causes, Democrats often treat it as normal by setting up tent encampments on sidewalks and framing it as charity. The streets, in turn, become cluttered with trash, human waste, and needles. Tolerance becomes a justification for almost anything. Meanwhile, ordinary Americans are expected to accept this disorder as morally right, while common sense seems to vanish. Democrats rarely resolve problems. Instead, they encourage protest by framing crises as moral statements or a form of justice.
Normal people read that San Francisco has basically legalized shoplifting. They think Democrats have gone nuts. They think, that Ted Cruz guy seems like a real stiff. But at least he believes in the concept of shopping with money.
Honestly, Democrats have earned their reputation as comedians' favorite target. Sometimes it feels like they're scripting their own late-night shows, given how absurd some of their policies are. Take their push to cut police funding, especially amid rising crime rates. Reducing law enforcement seems like the pinnacle of progress. Who even needs protection? Why not let chaos take over and watch the country turn into a real-life Mad Max scene? Then there's their obsession with cancel culture, which represents the height of their absurdity. It's essentially a glorified witch hunt that has destroyed careers, silenced criticism, and turned social media into a firing squad, all under the guise of justice. The damage has been enormous, yet Democrats present it as a noble pursuit. At this point, they hardly need comedians to mock them. their ability to lampoon themselves is already impeccable.
It's not my fault that the party of FDR and JFK is turning into the party of LOL and WTF. Members of Congress tweeting things like cancel rent, cancel mortgage, and no more policing or incarceration, declaring that capitalism is slavery, canceling Lincoln and Dr. Seuss, teaching children they're oppressors and math is racist, making Mr. Potato Head gender neutral, and now an emoji for pregnant men. Real, I'm not making it up.
California is practically a master of overregulation. This state doesn't just govern, it micromanages nearly every aspect of your life. Want to start a business? The mountain of paperwork, permits, and approvals makes the IRS look lenient. Want to drive your car? Better hope it complies with the ever-shifting emission rules crafted by officials who have probably never touched a wrench. And it doesn't stop at businesses. Residences are under the microscope too. Zoning laws, bylaws, and building regulations dictate everything, even the roof over your head, driving up costs dramatically. If you're lucky enough to be allowed to build anything at all, it will take years of bureaucracy and a small fortune in fees. Sacramento dedicates endless energy to these rules, yet somehow fails to understand why thousands of people are fleeing the state.
California just passed a law requiring large retailers to have a non-gendered toy section. A non-gendered toy section? Isn't Ken enough? We need a law for that? You have to inject yourselves into everything, from where you can throw a frisbee to who can braid hair? This is why so many people, by the way, were triggered by COVID policies. They were already sick of rules.
Maher highlights yet another uncomfortable truth. A society cannot thrive under endless layers of rules. This isn't progress, it's suffocation. People cannot flourish in a dynamic, evolving world when every word, thought, and action is tightly controlled. The more limits we impose, the more sterile and predictable society becomes. Constant scrutiny doesn't foster creativity, it stifles it. True innovation isn't about censoring human expression. It's about taking risks, breaking expectations, and embracing freedom. Yet today, political correctness and excessive regulation are erasing the very qualities that make us unique. Fear and uniformity replace excellence, encouraging self-censorship and monotony over meaningful dialogue and invention. Maher is right. Society doesn't advance when freedom is sacrificed for control. Instead, it grows dull, rigid, and fragile.
Inflation should be a good issue for Democrats. It's certainly one they're associated with. And I think the average voter would agree that banks and chemical plants and drug companies need watching. Telling a company, you can't dump the waste from your hog farm straight into the water supply. We're mostly all for that. But Democrats have become a parody of themselves, just making rules to make rules because it makes you feel like you're a better person. Making sure that everything bad never happens again, which you can never fully do. It just makes everyone else's life a drag.
Ultimately, Bill Maher has grown too influential for the contemporary left to handle. He speaks with sincerity, and even when it challenges his own long-held beliefs, he does not hesitate to expose hypocrisy wherever he sees it. This unwavering commitment is what makes his commentary so powerful. Time and again, Maher has reminded us that meaningful growth comes not from retreating into echo chambers or blindly labeling those with differing opinions, but from questioning ourselves, revising our perspectives, and engaging in honest, substantive dialogue. He has consistently highlighted the dangers of overregulation, cancel culture, and excessive political correctness. Whether pointing out the absurdity of city after city reducing punishments for theft, the left's tolerance of chaos, or the stifling of creativity under constant scrutiny, Maher has illustrated how society becomes sterile, fearful, and rigid when freedom is suppressed for control's sake. California's overbearing bureaucracy, zoning restrictions, and constant micromanagement serve as a vivid example of this phenomenon. The more rules imposed, the less society thrives. Maher's critiques extend to the left's reflexive demonization of dissent, the obsession with purity tests, and the glorification of virtue signaling over reasoned debate. He has boldly called out the woke for prioritizing ideology over critical thinking, showing that loyalty to party lines cannot replace common sense or pragmatic solutions. His evolution from a staunch liberal to someone willing to embrace centrist or even conservative perspectives demonstrates that logic and principle are not confined to political labels. In the end, Maher serves as a reminder that societal progress requires freedom, open discussion, and courage to challenge orthodoxy. Echoing throughout his commentary is a single truth: common sense transcends party affiliations.